Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's the Adventures of Bayou Billy, brought to us by Konami. While Adventures of Bayou Billy may be remembered for just how difficult the game can be, it still was one of my absolute favorite games to play. With a mixture of action beat-em-up style gameplay, light gun use, as well as driving levels, Bayou Billy was a nice mix and a pretty cool game overall. And it also has a great soundtrack that I still enjoy listening to. In Bayou Billy, we take control of Bayou Billy West as he's trying to save his girlfriend, Annabelle Lane, from the evil Godfather Gordon. In order to save her, we'll have to travel through the Bayou of Louisiana, travel along the roads, and get to the city of New Orleans, one of the greatest cities in the world. So here we go with the Adventures of Bayou Billy for the NES. At the startup screen, you actually have two game modes, Game A and Game B. By choosing Game A, you actually have to use the light gun, and by using Game B, you instead control the gun pointer with the control pad. You can also complete training stages, and they have one for each different type of gameplay, and by doing so, you'll actually net yourself extra bullets, raw meat bonuses, or an extra life. After you select your game mode, you'll have a Konami logo, followed by some great historic video game voiceover.
The Adventures of Bayou Billy.
The first stage of Bayou Billy is an action stage. It's pretty much like a simple style beat 'em up. You have a punch, as well as a kick, and you can also do a jump kick by pressing both attack buttons at the same time. This is pretty much going to be our main attack for most of the game until we get some weapons. With most of the enemies in the game early on, our best bet is to do a jump kick attack at them, walk through them to the opposite side of their body, and do an attack from that side. Alternating between the left and right sides allows us to hit them multiple times, and lessens the chance of them actually doing a direct attack to us. It definitely takes some getting used to, but those who have played the Double Dragon series will have a little bit of an advantage in this department. The trees in the background sometimes can actually be really useful. Certain enemies don't have the best AI, so they'll actually walk up to the scenery and keep walking into a tree. This will give you a great advantage in either attacking them multiple times without them attacking you, or give you the opportunity to go after another enemy. In the first body of water that we come to, keep doing jump kicks throughout it so that you can move fast through the water and avoid a lot of the crocodile attacks. There are some crocodiles we actually will have to fight, but the first couple we don't. Next up, you have these big enemies that like to carry rocks at you. Just keep doing your jump attacks like you've been doing the normal enemies, and try to do your best to avoid the large rocks. One of the enemies will carry a stick, which is extremely useful and is our first weapon of the game that we're going to be using. Once you have the stick, you can use this and keep mashing the attack button over and over again, and you should be able to get 2, 3, and sometimes 4 hits in on an enemy before they're able to get close enough to do any damage to you. In the second area, we have to take on the crocodiles. So walk over far enough to get them to spawn onto the screen, then walk back to the left side. Stand against the scenery in the back and just keep hitting the attack button every time the crocodiles come out of the water. You may have to move down sometimes or up sometimes in order to get them to come out, and you may get nipped a little bit. If so, back away just a step or two, so you can still hit them with the stick when they jump out of the water, but they're not able to hit you, or at least not hit you many times. After you kill the alligators, move quickly across the water and you'll come to a small barrier in between two ponds. Stand at the edge of the barrier on either side and prepare to fight some scuba divers. The scuba divers will pop out of the water and you'll have to use your stick in order to take them out. Use your stick in order to do the most damage that you can to the scuba diver, before then using your jump kicks to finish them off. After you take out one side of the scuba divers, then go to the opposite side. The scuba diver on the right side was wearing white, and that signified that he actually had a protective bulletproof vest on that once you defeated him, you could pick up yourself and deflect bullets. You can use the gun by hitting the select button and then pressing your punch button to fire. It'll pretty much instantly kill a lot of the enemies in the game. After a little bit, you'll have another scuba diver with a bulletproof vest, so use either your stick or do the jump kick in order to take away his shield, then finish him off. Once again, in the next set, we'll have a bunch of more crocodiles chasing us down. Just keep using the jump kick over and over again, and hopefully you'll be able to get through the water without taking too much damage. When you outrun the gators, you've completed stage number 1. Stage number 2 is the first level of the game that used the light gun, or in our case we'll be using the control pad. You have a reticle on the screen, you move it back and forth and all around in order to attack and shoot all the enemies on screen. You can't just be completely trigger happy because you do have a limited amount of bullets that you can use. Useful to your advantage is you can pick up extra bullets that get dropped from enemy deaths, as well as you can pick up some other things including a bulletproof vest. The bulletproof vest will take a couple of shots for you so you won't start losing health quickly. You don't have to defeat every enemy that appears on screen during this stage. Your goal is pretty much just to shoot most of them, as well as anyone that's going to start directly shooting at you. Some enemies will just run off screen instead of fighting you, and those you really don't have to worry about. But you're never quite sure, and it's always random where the enemies are going to start dropping from half the time. Overall, I end up finding the shooting levels to be the easiest, with this one being probably the easiest level in the game. If you're able to actually see a star that pops down from one of the enemies you defeat and shoot it, any enemy that's currently on screen at that time will also instantly be defeated. When you reach this point, it's time for the boss battle of the stage. You have soldier-like enemies that will walk across the ground, and be sure to take them out and then focus on the helicopter. You'll have to keep going back and forth because both the helicopter and the soldiers on the ground can hurt you, but the helicopter is what needs to be defeated in order to complete the stage. It won't look like you're doing much damage to the helicopter at first, but after a while its health will quickly start depleting. Once you take away all its health, you complete the level and we move on to stage 3. Stage number 3 is the second action stage of the game. We start off with some of the normal enemies that we were fighting in the first level. We also keep our weapon if we had one from the end of the previous action stage. But even if we didn't, we can get another one really early on from this enemy. Use your jump attacks if the enemies are close, but if they're from a distance, make sure you start using the stick to take them out. In the first body of water, we want to once again get the crocodiles to start attacking us from the water itself while we're actually standing on the banks of the river. Just wait for them to pop up and slowly keep attacking them, trying to deplete their health. Sometimes the gators will get stuck on the different logs in the water, so you may have to jump in or move down a little bit to try to get him to come out. Once you defeat both of them, start running across to the opposite side. Be careful of the bird enemy that will start flying at you from the right side. We saw a few of them in the first level, but you can pretty much just dodge them and you won't have to deal with them, or do one quick jump kick to take them out. Next up, we have two of those rock-throwing enemies. Be careful not to get hit by the rock, and just keep doing the same thing we've been doing to enemies. Do the jump kick close, or use your stick from a farther distance in order to hit multiple times. At this point though, whatever you feel more comfortable with is probably your best aim of attack. While the game can be really difficult and you can lose health rather fast, once you start getting used to your attacking, you'll be able to keep the enemies farther away and dealing less damage to you. This will allow you to keep your health bar up, and even though when you do lose some health, you should be able to get a health replenishment from the large chunks of meat that certain enemies drop every few sets of enemies. This section can be a pain because these enemies are a little bit quicker than the blue ones, and they like to bunch up on one another. Just keep using your weapon if you have it, and if they knock it away from you, start using your jump kick to try to separate the enemies if possible and deal damage to them. When you reach the end here, we have our next boss battle. This large guy can be a huge pain and likes to grab you and throw you around. We're pretty much going to be using our same basic jump attack in order to take him out, so stand next to him and just keep doing jump kicks over and over and over again when he steps in front of you. If you stand still and let him come to you, you'll have a better chance usually of being able to actually hit him. Once you drain all his health, walk over to the right and you complete the stage. Stage number 4 is the first driving level of the game. There's only 2 driving stages in the game, and they happen back to back. Our goal in the driving stage is to get our car, which you can see is represented by the P symbol at the top of the screen, to the checkered flag on the far right side. We have to do so within the time limit. You can see your time in the upper left corner next to the T equals sign. You also have your speed being represented at the top of the screen. The top right where the R is how many lives you have left. And unfortunately, you do die in one hit. When driving in the game, you hold the up button in order to accelerate, and the down button in order to decelerate. But you can also slightly slow down by stop pressing the up button, and this will be very useful, especially on certain harder turns throughout the level. You also have a gun and a grenade as your 2 attack buttons in the level. You'll have to use the gun to take out all the cars, and the grenades to take out the planes. However, when you have a grenade out, you're not going to be able to use your gun. And sometimes you'll have both an airborne plane or helicopter coming at you at the same time as a car. But the thing is, most times, the car will actually get to you first. So stay still until the car gets to you, hit that with the gun, and then use your grenade on the plane or copter. With all the turning, as well as the enemies that are on the road, it can be almost impossible to get through this section without getting hit at least once or twice. And even though the cars and the planes are the enemies of the level, I end up finding the posts on the side of the roads much more annoying, because when you're making hard turns, you'll accidentally just barely clip one and lose a life that way. The good thing is though, the poles are always in the same exact order every time you play, so you may know on certain turns that you may have a tricky pole that you may have to slow down for after you've played the game a couple of times. It's actually interesting to point out that the game in Japan is known as Mad City, and it actually ends up being a lot easier than the American release, and it also has different endings, while the US release only has one. While the endings really aren't any different than the one we'll be getting, I will showcase one of those extra endings when we get to the end of the game. When you reach the checkered flag, you complete part 1 of the driving stage and you move on to stage 5. In stage 5, we once again are driving on the roads trying to get to the checkered flag before the time runs out. During this segment, the cars and all are pretty much the exact same that we've been dealing with. However, there's a lot more tricky turns to deal with that you'll have to be slowing down or let go of the acceleration, as well as some more different threats that come out in the middle of the road, such as rocks and oil slicks. In the level, the helicopters are now replacing the planes, however they're working the exact same way as they did in the first level. You may have noticed in the stage number 4, and you can also get it in stage 5, there was like a blue paint can in the middle of the road. By picking it up, I guess it gives you more fuel, which is more time limit on your timer. You end up getting an extra 10 seconds if you're able to pick it up. It may take some getting used to overall, but letting go of the accelerator is definitely the best way to take most of the turns, and you'll probably still get hit once, twice, or maybe even 3 times throughout the driving levels, but you'll slowly start to get better at them as we go. And when you're new to the game, it's definitely best to try the training stage, especially for the driving level first, to get a real good handle on the controls. Also, in the Japanese version, if you complete all 3 of the training stages, instead of getting a bonus like you do in the US version, you end up actually getting penalized by getting the bad ending of the game. After getting hit several times, exploding, and destroying many cars and helicopters, we finally reach the end of the road and complete stage number 5. In stage number 6, we're in the city of New Orleans, and it's time for another one of the beat-em-up style levels. The enemies in this level are a little bit more challenging than the ones we fought before, and they look a little bit different. As you can see, the outfits have changed. However, our strategies for them pretty much haven't. The jump kick is still our best normal attack until we're able to get a hold of a weapon. Jump back and forth between them, going from left to right and right to left with your jump kicks, doing a good job of separating their attacks and giving yourself a lot less shot of getting hit. These guys do move a little bit quicker, so you may have to chase them down, and there is not really any walls to get them stuck on, but you shouldn't have too much trouble with them. The next enemy, the big ball and chain enemy, stand near him and attack him a bunch of times, 3 to 4 times in front of him, then try to get away from him before he's able to attack you with the giant mace. Be careful in the next set of enemies, because you have 2 of those giant ball and chain enemies. Focus on the one on the right first, because the other one from the left side will take a long time to walk his way over to you. Then, focus on the left one. Also, by beating them in this order, if you do take some damage from them, you'll get a chicken from the guy on the left. Next up, take out the ball and chain enemy first, and then focus on the blue-shirted enemy. The blue-shirted enemies are definitely the weaker of the enemies in the game, and they also seem to have a slightly stupider AI, as they seem to walk around in circles more so than other ones. Next up, we have the whip-throwing enemies. Do your dropkick to take out one of the enemies, and then easily grab his whip. This is the best weapon in the game, and just keep mashing the attack over and over again to take out the other guy. Once the other enemy drops his whip, he seems to have an obsession with trying to pick it back up, and this will give you plenty of opportunities to keep whipping him and take him out. From this point on in the game, you want to do your absolute best to keep the whip at all times, so if any enemy is able to knock it out of your hands, quickly pick it up before continuing on. You do have a few more whip enemies to take out in case you do lose the whip, but just hold on to it because when we're able to beat this level, we get to carry the whip along with us to the next stage. When you get here, take out the guy on the ground first before the other two are really able to jump down and start attacking you. If you accidentally pick up the stick instead of your whip, be sure to try to pick up a whip from one of the other two enemies. The guy in the white shirt and sunglasses can definitely be a pain because his kicks have a pretty good far reach. So what you want to do is stand as far away from him and keep running away every time you can, and then turn around and deliver 1 or 2 hits to him and then continue running. Be sure you don't accidentally pick up the stick and replace your whip with that weapon, because the whip will definitely help you out better instead. As you've already noticed, with 3 guys on screen at once, you can sometimes get 2 of them together, and you can actually attack both of them with the whip. Just try to stay out of their reach, and if you need some health, the guy on the left side there with the red shirt will drop a full thing of health. Up next, you'll have to take on 2 of the white-shirted guys at one time. One of the guys will try to throw a knife at you, so try to dodge that one, while whipping one of the other ones. At this point though, with all the guys on screen, you may have a lot of weapons, so just try to stay focused and make sure you don't accidentally lose your whip at this point. One of the great things, though, about the game is every time you get a weapon knocked out of your hand, you can still pick it up. You don't end up losing it, and it doesn't disappear after it hits the ground a few times, like a lot of the weapons do in some of the other later beat-em-up games. The guy in the white shirt there is just as easy as before, except this time he has a bulletproof vest that you'll have to take out, and he ends up being the boss of the level. Stage number 7 is the second of the gun shooting stages. Now this one takes place in New Orleans itself and is a little bit more challenging than the first one. Enemies can be a little bit tougher to see than before because they like to hide in the buildings and in windows, and you also have some new types of enemies, including the guys on motorcycles. Thankfully, the controls and mechanics as well as the items are the exact same from the first shooting level, so it really isn't anything new to learn during this stage, other than taking out those moving enemies like the motorcycle guys, which take a few shots to take out. Thankfully though, also, a lot of the enemies will run off screen and you won't have to fight them, just like the first stage. The only ones you'll have to take out are the ones that stop and look at you, and try to do your best to get them before they end up delivering a shot to you and taking away some of your health. The motorcycle guys are definitely a threat because of how fast they move. They can be a little bit challenging to hit, but the good thing is they usually like to drop items once you do defeat them. Once the scenery begins to change from the normal city-looking blocks into this gated area, you know you're almost near the end. Try to take out the guys who run in between the pillars, and eventually you'll come out into a park. The park-looking area is actually the front lawn area of the mansion that Godfather Gordon is in. And once you pull up to the gate, it's time for another boss battle. This boss is a lot more challenging than the one from the first stage, as you have a guy who's running back and forth with a gun that will keep firing, and a guy jumping with knives throwing at him. I like to focus on the guy with the gun first, because he'll keep firing and you can't deflect his shots, while the guy with the knives, you actually can deflect the knives away from him. So take out the gun guy first, then focus on the knives, and try to do your best to block the knives that get thrown at you after the gun guy's done. If you're able to, you should have a little bit of health left and complete the stage. Stage 8 is another beat-em-up level, and we actually start with both the bulletproof vest and the whip that we have from the previous beat-em-up stage. The first guys that we come to are guys that like to shoot guns at you, and they're basically a palette swap of the whip guys. Take out the guy on the right first, and try to get the other ones to bunch together, and then do your best to keep whipping. As long as you have the bulletproof vest, all the bullets will keep blocking right off your chest and won't do any damage to you. So just keep letting them try to pick up their guns off the ground as you whip the crap out of them. Next up, you have the enemies that come at you with the bulletproof vest, which was the boss of the previous beat-em-up stage. These guys are real tough and can deal a ton of damage. So what I like to do is try to bunch them together and knock the bulletproof vest off of them. If you're able to get the vest off of them, then switch to your gun and fire some bullets at them to kill them. If you can't for some reason get the vest off of them easily, just keep whipping and slowly move up or down, and you should be able to stop them from attacking you over and over again, and be able to lay in some shots with that whip. Next up is the boss of the stage. Hit him with the whip to knock his vest off, and then fire one bullet at him to finish him off and complete the level. Stage number 9 is the final stage of the game, and it's just 2 boss battles. The first one is against Godfather Gordon himself. Now thankfully we still have the whip as well as the bulletproof vest, so we are in great shape. If for some reason you don't have these items, this level is almost impossible and can take a lot of practice in order to get through it without. Godfather Gordon runs around a ton and can be really hard to hit with your whip. Just try to get in close enough so your whip can actually reach him, and keep swinging. A lot of times he'll just jump out of the way and you won't be able to hit him, and other times you'll be able to get one hit before he is able to jump away. The bullet is instant death if you do not have a bulletproof vest, so if he's firing at you, you have to be sure to avoid it. After a lot of running around and trying to hit this guy, whether you're using the whip or the jump kick, when you can finally get those last hits in and he drops, you think the game's over, but you still have another boss battle to go through. The final bosses are actually these two guys, Rocky and Rocco. Now, the best way to beat these guys is walking in a circle over and over again. What you'll do is, you'll walk around in a circle, and then turn around quickly in order to deliver a hit to them. You can use your jump kick if that's all you have, or it's best of course to get in a hit with the whip. You don't want to try to get in multiple whip shots unless you really think you have enough distance between you and them so that they can't get in close enough. If they get close enough, they deal a lot of damage, they can grab you and even do double team moves to you to hurt you that way. This battle will take a while and it's not easy. but doing the pattern of walking around in a circle non-stop over and over is easily the best way to get through this. This may seem really tedious, but trust me, this is probably the best way to deal with this battle. It may seem like for a long time that you're not really doing too much damage to them, but they actually do have two separate health bars, so you may not hit both of them every time you hit, you may only hit the one, so it will take a while. Once one drops though, the battle will speed up. While it may not seem possible, you can also do this battle without the whip and just using the jump kick. You'll have to time your jumps perfectly most of the time or else you'll end up being grabbed, but hopefully even when you do get grabbed you won't lose too much health during this fight. You'll have to jump just at the reach of your foot, and if you do so, you'll be able to run away quickly enough without them being able to hit you. Once the one goes down, the second one's a lot easier. All you have to do is keep running around and deliver those last few hits, and then you can sit back and enjoy the ending to the Adventures of Bayou Billy. After the ending, as well as the character roll call, we then get to the credits. The Adventures of Bayou Billy may not be one of the most memorable titles by Konami, and its difficulty may be up there, but it's not nearly as difficult or as tedious as some of the other hardest games available for the NES, for example games like Battletoads and even Silver Surfer. And with the variety of gameplay options, doing a shooter, driving stages, and beat 'em up, as well as the ability to use the light gun, Bayou Billy is definitely a title that's worth checking out for the original Nintendo. Heck, just checking out the sound mode and listening to the great soundtrack is worth putting Bayou Billy in the NES console. As the credits wrap up and we come to our end screen, I wanted to show you guys the alternate Japanese-only ending to Bayou Billy. After defeating Rocky and Rocco and you actually get to Annabelle's rescue, you can actually move around instead of standing still. When Annabelle comes out of her cell, you can actually run away from her, let her chase you, and after a few seconds, you end up getting an alternate ending. While not vastly different from the original ending, it's still pretty funny going all that way to save Annabelle and then wanting nothing to do with her once you save her. I'm sure the dialogue's pretty funny as well, but unfortunately, I don't know Japanese. And with that, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.